And I get asked the question a lot on when the diversion project's going to be done. And I always kind of half joke, half serious, but the diversion project needs to be done before the next big flood.
The annual spring threat of flood to this area takes a huge emotional toll on our population. For a lot of new residents, and we have something like 9 or 10 every day, they haven't experienced this.
And so as we get further away from 2009, flooding isn't on people's tip of their tongue as often. And so they talk about their pocketbook, or they talk about the regulatory issues they see in the paper or wherever. But flooding is really something that we try to stress more and more. Bring back those pictures. I try to ask people who was here in 2009, and as I'm talking to different groups, that number is getting smaller and smaller as our city grows.
So if we had a 2009 one, I think we could handle that with less scare than we did in 2009. A 100-year flood, we would still have a real problem with that. So this is really important that this happens. The other piece of it is the longer that we put it off, the more it gets expensive.
There's construction and inflationary issues that go on that oftentimes increase it. Every time we've gone back and repriced the project, it's gone up. So it started at 1.8, it's at 2.2 now, and it'll probably go a little bit higher. Those things you don't want. And then finally, there's a thing of how long does it take you to build? You may have a risk of a flood. So the sooner you get it done, the faster that everybody's protected. We've worked with the Corps and have come up with a 6.5-year build, and that's what we're going to try to do. We'll hopefully get that done. If it's not done, then we have to do emergency measures.
But what we also see, and we saw in Grand Forks, is when you get a major flood, people leave and don't come back. And it takes years or decades to really get back to where you were.
We're roughly a $16 billion economy. And FEMA has said, and this is sort of short long term, we had the assistant director of FEMA come in, and he said the best chance of recovery is a 70% chance of recovery. We can look to Grand Forks as a perfect example of that. 2 sessions ago, legislative sessions ago, I sat next to the superintendent of Grand Forks Public Schools in Bismarck. He said at that time his enrollment from the elementary level just got back to what it was prior to their flood. So shut down for 15 or 20 years, a $16 billion economy. So to the state, it hurts. Never mind to your neighbor who's possibly going to lose one of those 30% of those jobs that won't return.
Well, we're going to have a flood, and in the springtime we're going to have to deal with that, but what a lot of people don't realize is their flood insurance. So a lot of homes now don't need flood insurance, but with the FEMA remapping and going up at a higher level, many of our houses will have to get flood insurance, will increase the cost of their home.
If we have flood rates go up the way we've been told they can go up, it would be devastating not only to homeowners, but to the housing market in general in the metropolitan area. It just simply would not be affordable.
I think the fact that we have to do something has been missed. You don't get to do the diversion or nothing. What you get is either the diversion or 1,000 houses in Moorhead, 10,000 houses in Fargo, in the metro area, are going to have to be paying flood insurance. The estimate on that is roughly $50 million a year. I think that's the important takeaway, is that if we don't do something, or if we don't do something to a 100-year event level where those folks are protected, you're going to be paying money into infinity. And chances are, with the way the flood protection program is going, the flood insurance program is going, it's not going to get any cheaper.
Moorhead doesn't have 11,000 houses like Fargo does that are involved, but we do have 1,000. And we also are next to Fargo, which not a significant amount of people work in. But those 1,000 really matter. They are affordable homes. Each home is an important piece.
The one thing that people don't talk about very often, actually, which is kind of ironic, is it's about flooding. Flooding is the problem we're trying to solve. So regardless of all these other issues going on, at the end of the day, we still have a flood problem and we need to solve it. And so the diversion project is the attempt to solve that problem. And there's a lot of nuances to that project that are worth discussing, like the financial aspects. But really, flooding is something that people seem to forget about often when we get caught up, because we don't see floods every day.
such a devastation, not only to the people that live here in Cass County, but to the entire state. We are the economic engine to the state of North Dakota, and it would just be just a tragedy.
Right now, if we have a 500-year event, the Fargo-Moorhead, West Fargo area is gone, and there's nothing we can do about it. That needs to be a concern for all of us, given the sways we've had with our flood levels in the past 10, 20 years.
You know, we have some very good flood fighters. We have a lot of volunteers. I think the community would rally and do what they can, but we would be in a tough situation again because there's an atrophy every time you have to call on the citizens to do this, and we've seen this as we have had consecutive flood fights. It's getting tougher on people.
With the diversion in place, what we get is predictability and stability.
In the spring, if people can go through a spring without worrying about what they may have to do, it works really well for this city.
You know, I think everyone here looks forward to summer and the springtime, and people like riding their bikes along the river. You go out along the river, there's people walking their dogs with their kids, teaching them how to ride their bike. This year especially is a dry year. You see that people are active. I want every year to be like this, and I think with the diversion project in place, every year will be like this.
You know, it's something that we can leave a legacy to our children for generations to come, and I'm looking forward to that.
But I think when it happens, we can probably feel safe that our community is protected, and I think that'll be a good place for us to be.